Have you ever felt lost, untethered, searching for something more? Welcome to Angelic Footprints, where the spirit meets the road on a journey to self-healing and rediscovery. I'm Dagmar, your host, psychic medium and seasoned traveler. Each week we'll explore the world of angels and personal transformation. We're going to dive into compelling histories and captivating mythology. You're going to hear remarkable, real-life angel encounters and discover how you too can connect with the angels guiding your path. Whether it's through practical tips, meditation techniques, or stories that resonate deeply, Angelic Footprints is here to light your way. From mystical journeys to profound self-discovery, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Are you ready to find your angelic guide? Then subscribe to Angelic Footprints today and step into a world where angels walk beside you every step of the way. Angels, spirituality, healing. Let's ignite your transformation. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast. I'm so glad that you are here because I'm super excited to tell you all about angels in Paris. I want to take you to this very special city where not only are there amazing angels everywhere, there's beautiful architecture, and it really is a sight to behold. I know what you might be thinking. Paris is romantic. Paris is fashion. Paris is croissants and the Eiffel Tower. All true. But Paris is also something else entirely. It is one of the most angel-rich cities on the planet. And if you know where to look, you'll find these extraordinary beings watching over you at almost every turn. Truth be told, before I went to Paris, I had a schedule laid out. And as it happened, that schedule got kind of blown out of the water because I found so many more angels than I had expected, including a few that weren't on the original itinerary. And that just happened to be about the first two that I'm going to share with you. Most importantly, in this episode, I'm sharing the highlights from this visit. A personal pilgrimage through the streets of Paris, seeking out angels, the archangels, the winged figures, and the sacred stories carved into stone across this magnificent city. Whether you are planning a trip to Paris for yourself or you simply want to travel through it with me from your comfortable sofa, I hope this opens up your eyes to a side of the city that most people walk straight past. And with that in mind, let's begin. The first point of call here for me was the Pont Saint-Denis. It is on the Boulevard Saint-Denis, where I happened to be going on the very first day I arrived there. As it happened, I was doing some shopping, having a coffee in the afternoon with my husband, and this happened to come up. Now, the Pont Saint-Denis sits right in the middle of a very busy street in the 10th arrondissement, and people walk underneath it every single day without really stopping to look up. But indeed, you must look up. This is an amazing archway, one of the very first ever built in Paris. It was commissioned in 1672 by King Louis XIV, and at over 24 meters high, it is a genuinely imposing structure. It was built to celebrate Louis's military victories, and it set the template for every triumphal arch that followed, including eventually the Arc de Triomphe itself. Now you might be wondering, where are the angels? Take a look at the obelisk pedestals on either side when you have a look at some of these pictures. They carry sculpted groups of military trophies and allegorical figures, powerful symbolic carvings that speak to divine protection over the king's armies. The north face carries allegorical figures representing the Rhine and the Netherlands. The south face shows the crossing of the Rhine. These are not just decoration. In the 17th century, these figures carried deep spiritual meaning. They were seen as the heavenly forces behind earthly victories. The Porte Saint-Denis is really just the beginning of a sacred trail through Paris, and it reminds us that even in the most ordinary of streets, history and symbolism are layered into the stone above our head. Just a short walk away, still in the 10th arrondissement, you will find the Church of Saint Laurent, one of the oldest and most quietly remarkable churches in Paris. I was walking past this church on my way to dinner on that same evening, and I felt a strong pull to want to go inside. Now, I'll tell you, this building has been standing in some form since the 6th century. Yes, that long ago. And that is over 1,400 years of prayer, community, and sacred art on a single site. The church was largely rebuilt in the 14th century in what is called the flamboyant Gothic style. And if you have ever seen those extraordinary pointed arches and intricately carved stone windows, you will understand exactly why it earned that name. Flamboyant means flame-like, and on these soaring vaults and windows, genuinely they look as though stone has been caught in mid-movement, like fire frozen in the architecture. Inside the building, you will find 19th century paintings depicting episodes from the Gospel, a beautiful sculpture of the Madonna and Child, and stunning stained glass windows. One is on the theme of the visitation, the moment when Mary, pregnant with Jesus, visits her cousin Elizabeth. It is a deeply tender scene, and the light through the stained glass window gives it an almost otherworldly quality. The church also holds an unusual piece of history. It is home to the tombs of the Sanson family, who were Paris's chief executioners for several generations. I'm going to leave that little detail with you, but do check out the beautiful angels, the sculptures, and the glass windows that I have attached to the video in this podcast. The following day, we made our way across the river to the left bank and one of the most dramatic angel sightings in all of Paris, the Fontaine Saint-Michel, otherwise known as St. Michael's Fountain. This is a monumental fountain. And yes, it did have restoration work being done at the time I was there, but be assured it took nothing away from the magic of this sculpture. It stands 26 meters wide and 15 meters tall. It was designed by architect Gabriel Daviod and built between 1858 and 1860 as part of Baron Haussmann's great transformation of the city under Napoleon III. At its heart is a powerful bronze sculpture of the Archangel Michael casting down the devil beneath him. The sculpture was Francisque Joseph Doré, and the craftsmanship is really quite extraordinary. Water flows from beneath the defeated figure, cascading through a series of basins to a wide pool at street level. The whole structure is multi-leveled, almost like a triumphal arch, and David used 5 different types of colored stone to build it. But here is what is quite amazing about this fountain. Did you know that it almost never happened? The original plan was for a simple peace statue. Then Napoleon III insisted The centerpiece should be a statue of himself. His political opponents were furious. The uproar was so strong that David went back to the drawing board and came up with a compromise that everyone could agree on. The Archangel Michael, the great warrior of heaven, the protector, the one who casts out darkness. I think there's something really profoundly meaningful in that story. When human ego threatened to take center stage, it was an archangel who stepped in instead. Archangel Michael has been a patron of France for centuries. He appeared to Joan of Arc to inspire her mission. He is the angel of protection, of courage, and of divine justice. Standing in front of this fountain, you really do feel that energy. A little way down the road is the Notre-Dame, and I will say to you, I was quite moved standing in front of this awesome piece of architecture. Now, the cathedral was severely damaged by fire in April 2019, but it has been restored and it reopened to the world on the 7th of December 2024. When I recently visited, it was fresh, luminous, extraordinary, and it took nearly $1 billion and 5 years of extraordinary craftsmanship, and overall the result is awe-inspiring. Notre Dame is filled with angelic imagery, but the place I want to direct your attention to is the central portal of the western facade out the front. This is known as the portal of the Last Judgment. It is one of the most detailed pieces of angelic storytelling you will ever see in carved stone. At the very base, the dead are rising from their graves. Angels are sounding trumpets. Look at the diversity of the figures. A pope, a king, women, warriors, and notably also an African man. These medieval stone carvers were making a profound point. Last Judgment calls everyone, without exception. On the lintel above, Archangel Michael stands at the center, holding the scales of justice, weighing each soul. 2 demons are trying to tip the scales. They are not winning. To the right of Christ, the chosen souls are being led peacefully towards paradise. To the left, the damned are chained and terrified, being led away by other demons. And at the very top, Christ sits majestically, flanked by Mary, John the Baptist, and 2 angels carrying the instruments of the crucifixion. This portal was begun around 1230, which means that these carvings are, 800 or so years old. They were designed as a visual teaching for a largely illiterate population, a complete theology in stone, and they are still showing themselves today. Notre Dame has its famous gargoyles and grotesques, and I want to clarify something here. The gargoyles are actually functional structures. They serve as drain pipes, channeling water away from the walls. The grotesque figures, the strange haunting creatures peering down from the gallery above the rose window, are actually a 19th century addition by architect Viollet-le-Duc. Victor Hugo immortalized them in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they have captivated imaginations ever since. Which takes us to one of the most visited museums in the world, the Louvre. And while I am going to describe to you a figure that is not technically an angel, it is quite extraordinary and majestic, so aligned with the energy of angelic beings, and she absolutely belongs in our pilgrimage. She is called the Winged Victory of Samothrace, and she is quite astounding. You will find her at the top of the Grand Daru staircase in the Denon wing, and as you climb those steps and she comes into view, headless, armless, her marble drapery billowing as though caught in a sea wind, she is one of the most powerful artistic experiences that you've probably ever seen. The winged victory represents Nike, the ancient Greek goddess of victory. She was carved around 190 BCE, so that's over 2,000 years ago, and she was discovered in fragments on the Greek island of Samothrace in 1863 by a French diplomat and amateur archaeologist named Charles Champussois. She arrived at the Louvre in 1864, and she was painstakingly restored, and she has been at the top of that staircase since 1883. Her head and arms have never been found. The base of the sculpture is shaped like the prow of a warship, and the pose captures the exact moment that Nike descends from the sky to announce a naval victory. Scholars believe she was originally positioned on a rocky hillside above a sacred sanctuary so that those approaching by sea would see her wings against the Aegean sky. She is made of white Parian marble, which catches the light with almost an unearthly quality. For those of us who work with angelic energy, there is something deeply resonant about the figure. She is a messenger of victory. She descends from the divine to the earthly realm. She is winged. She is ancient. And she is definitely worth your while to go and visit. And that takes me on to the Pont Alexandre III. Now, the Pont Alexandre III is a bridge, otherwise known as the Alexander III Bridge. Apparently, this bridge is one of the most beautiful bridges in Paris, with the golden dome of Les Invalides behind you and the Grand Palais ahead, the Seine glittering below and 4 breathtaking golden statues gleaming in the sunlight. This bridge was completed in 1900 for the Universal Exposition, Paris's great world fair, and it was designed as a symbol of friendship between France and Russia. It is named after Tsar Alexander III, who cemented the Franco-Russian alliance in 1892. His son Nicholas II personally laid the first stone in October 1896. It is classified as a French National Historic Monument, and it is widely considered the most ornate bridge in the city. And having taken many pictures, it doesn't actually do it justice. And that is really saying something. At each corner of the bridge stands a 17-meter high stone pillar, and on top of each pillar, a magnificent gilded bronze sculpture. These are called the Fames. They are winged female figures, each one restraining Pegasus, the mythical winged horse. Together, the 4 Fames represent the arts, the sciences, commerce, and industry, the 4 pillars of Belle Epoque progress. The 2 Fames on the right bank, the Fame of the arts and the Fame of the sciences, were both sculpted by Emmanuel Fremier, best known for his iconic gilded equestrian statue of Joan of Arc near the Louvre. On the left bank, the Fame of commerce was created by Pierre Granet, and the Fame of industry was the work of Clement Steiner. What I find so amazing about these sculptures is it's interesting to note that they represent great human endeavor through winged female figures. Back in an era when women, well, they were largely excluded from the arts, sciences, and commerce. These commanding, powerful women were placed at the very top of Paris's grandest bridge, their wings outstretched over the Seine. The bridge is also covered with Art Nouveau lamps, bronze cherubs, nymphs, sea creatures, and intricately carved railings, each one of it being intentional. On every inch of this bridge, there is something more to see. Go at early evening if you possibly can, when the setting sun catches those gilded wings. Which takes me on to the next bridge, and it's the Pont des Invalides. Now, it's not as grand as Pont Alexandre III, I'll give you that. It is a short distance away, and it is much less a celebrated bridge, but nonetheless one with its own angelic treasures. This is actually the lowest bridge over the Seine in Paris, and on its piers you will find 4 substantial 19th century statue groups representing naval and land victories. The naval figures in particular are often described as angel-like with their graceful feminine forms and flowing drapery. They stand in quiet contrast to the spectacle of the Pont Alexandre III bridge, much more understated. Nonetheless, it is still a bridge that is worth taking a look at and having a moment of stillness before we go on to the Opera Garnier. The Opera Garnier is one of the most extravagant buildings in Paris, and that is a high bar in a city that invented the word extravagant. It is found in the 9th arrondissement. Designed by architect Charles Garnier and completed in 1875, this opera house was conceived as a temple to art and human inspiration, and at its very peak, watching over the city from above, are its angels. The rooftop figures, often depicted playing music, are symbols of the link between the divine and the human. In Garnier's vision, the opera was not merely entertainment. It was a place where heaven and earth met through the power of music and performance. The angels on the roof are not decorative afterthoughts. They are the theological statement of the building. Even if you do not go inside, stand across the street from the Opera Garnier and look up at those figures against the Paris skyline. There is a reason people describe this building as making you feel like you have stepped into another world. And inside, the grand staircase alone is worth the visit. The ceiling of the main auditorium was painted by Marc Chagall in 1964, a swirling, dreamlike vision of music and mythology. Which takes us to our final stop on this tour of Paris, the Church of La Madeleine, found in the 8th arrondissement. The Church of La Madeleine is dedicated to Saint Mary Magdalene. From the outside, this building looks nothing like a church, and if you've seen my videos of Paris, you will remember that this building looks very much like the Parthenon or even a Roman temple, a massive neoclassical structure surrounded on all 4 sides by Corinthian columns, sitting in one of Paris's most exclusive neighborhoods. And that is because its history is as complicated as the surrounding area. It was originally planned as a church under Louis XV. Work stopped during the French Revolution. Napoleon wanted to transform it into a monument to his military glory. When Napoleon fell, it returned to being a church and was not finally completed and consecrated until 1842. So why is it on our angel trail? Because of what is above the entrance. There is an enormous pediment. There is a triangular sculpture over the front portico, which depicts the Last Judgment, sculpted by Philippe Joseph Lemaire. At the center is Christ, presiding over the great reckoning. On his right stands Archangel Michael, overseeing a group of figures representing the vices, those who will be refused entry to heaven. On his left, the virtues escort those who are welcomed in. And here is the remarkable detail. Mary Magdalene herself is shown kneeling among those refused entry, not in a permanent damnation, but in a posture of deep repentance. It is a profoundly theological, compassionate image. The woman this church is dedicated to is shown not in triumph but on her knees, in the fullness of her humanity, asking for grace. And the inscription above the entrance reads in Latin, "To God, all-powerful and very great, under the invocation of Saint Mary Magdalene, a church of grace, mercy, and second chances, and an angel to witness it all." Paris is extraordinary for many reasons. And as I said in my videos, if you're going to Paris and you have someone with you who is not into angels, tell them you're going there for the architecture. Angels here are everywhere. You'll find them when you open your eyes. They are on the bridges, they are on the fountains, they're high on the buildings and up above the doors and on rooftops. For centuries, the people who built this city believed that the divine was present in the physical world. That beauty itself was a form of worship, that art and architecture could carry spiritual truth, and so they embedded that truth into the very fabric of the city. You do not have to be religious to feel it. You just have to be willing to look up. If Paris is on your travel schedule, I hope this episode becomes your guide. And if it is not, I hope that it has brought Paris a little closer to your heart. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I know there are many more angels, and I am looking forward to going back to Paris to find more of them to bring you another episode. However, until the next time, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration.